Oh, right, yeah, okay.
We're live. You're live, Chair.
We're live, Chair.
Thank you. So 3:29. Just in case we have any late people.
On time people. On time people. Agenda.
Microphones are sensitive.
Reading.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to City of Powell River's of the whole meeting for Tuesday, October 3rd. Honor that we are holding this meeting on the traditional territory of our friends and neighbors, the Tla'amin Nation. Adoption of the agenda, the additions or changes, deletions, being none. Second, Mr. Isaacson, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you. On to number 2, adoption of minutes of the regular committee of the whole meeting held September 12, 2023.
Adoption.
Mr. Isaacson, Councilor Anita, any comments or discussion with regard to those minutes? Seeing none, on opposed, unanimous. Delegations, Fall River Chamber of Commerce regarding open versus closed C3 meetings. On both sides.
Good afternoon, Chair, Your Worship, members of council. Very happy to be sitting on this side of the table and not that side. How are you all doing? So I'm here to speak today about your possible decision to create the C3 into a meeting that is no longer transparent, open government, whereby I understand some votes have been made by one party, at least, I think the regional district of the C3, to have these meetings not in the public. Transparency, I mean, a lot of you folks ran on transparency, open government. I remember almost 15 years ago, I became a councillor. Stuart Alsgaard was the mayor. Councillor Jim Palm was sitting at that table almost 15 years ago when, under Stuart Alsgaard, we decided to create C3, 3 governments getting together, talking about issues that are common, talking about collaboration, partnerships, trying to create, working together and one community, although we were 3 governments. And in the open view of the public, the open view of the press. And it seems, from what I've been reading in the paper, that for some reason, even though the community charter is actually, I think you're trying to get maybe the community charter to change or something, I don't know. Not totally up to date on that. But to create a situation where the 3C will be in private. And I just don't know how that serves the public, how that serves the people. You know, my board, the Chamber of Commerce board, 261 members pre-COVID, rebuilding nicely. We had a unanimous vote at our board to come here and to ask you to keep the 3 governments meetings in the open. And what we used to do, as some of you would recall, we would meet and talk about things. And then we would come back to our specific governments, the 3 of us. We would talk about the issues that came, if they did or they didn't. And if we needed to go in camera, we went under section such and such. The clerk would tell us what section to go under. We'd talk about land, labor, or law. And then we'd come out and report when we could report. So we're here to humbly ask that council consider keeping the 3C open. public and to the three governments, citizens within this wonderful community. So we're here humbly to ask, not screaming and yelling and what have you. We're just asking you to reconsider and think about what it is you may be about to do. Thank you.
Full discussion. Who's first? I think Councillor Palmer, then the mayor, and then Councillor.
You, Chair, appreciate the opportunity. Ex-Mayor Formosa, it is a pleasure to see you in this gallery once again. We miss you
I
dearly,
miss you guys too.
and we hear what you're saying. I guess there was an article in the Peak, which I haven't had the pleasure to read yet, about what happened at the RD table. Is that correct?
That's what kind of got our minds moving and thinking, oh, what's going on here?
Well, when I heard about the outcome of the vote at our regional friends table, I was a little shocked. And I can specifically say I was shocked because I believe there were only two members that voted against the proposal. One of them being one of our city directors. And according to our community charter, you're absolutely correct. We are a creature of the provincial government, and we abide by provincial law and under the community charter, which at this present time does not allow us to meet with our regional partners behind closed doors for whatever reason. And as you pointed out, for 15 years, it seemed to serve this community very well. Up until recently, when a change in one of our partners' governments thought about this request. So we are working through this, and we did take it to UBCM and asked the provincial government to deal with the issue that would allow such meetings to take place so that all three levels of government, including Tla'amin, which is under the federal jurisdiction, would be allowed to meet behind closed doors. So for me, speaking only for myself, not on behalf of council, I would like to see that change at the provincial table take place to allow such meetings if a need arises. But I agree with your statement that for 15 years, those meetings were cordial, they were productive, they dealt with the issues of the day, and we all came back to our representative tables and discussed those issues and went forward. It's just unfortunate. I know when this comes to our table, I know what way I will be voting. I don't intend to break the laws of the land. So I want to assure you from my perspective, that's the way I would like to see this continue until the provincial government actually deals with it. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Formosa, I would like to thank you for making the time to come here and express a unanimous position. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Your worship, former worship. Wonderful to have you here today. We do miss you a lot. Wouldn't call you X anything. Everything, all the work you did on C3 is noted. I had the pleasure of working with you in that forum as well. The regional district did not vote to break any laws. What they said was all of the advice they were getting from the province at this point in time indicated that it was okay to accept an invitation to a forum that did not board business in the name of relationship building and getting discussions on board. I too would love and have no problem with meeting in public and saying what we should say in a transparent way. At this point in time, our relationship with Tla'amin Nation is very strained, as you know, and I'm not in favor of not meeting at all. That's not an option. So we are asking the provincial government for treating First Nations and Common Nation as an equal so when we have intergovernmental conversations, as you're aware, with the provincial or federal government, they have a separate chunk of legislation that is intended to deal with intergovernmental discussion. Cohaman doesn't get to be called a government under that legislation. So we've asked that to be changed so that they can be considered a government like every other government under our legislation, because we don't have that. Provincial government has come back to us and said that's not necessary. You've already got all the things that you need in place to carry on your conversations. When they need to be in camera, they should be in camera. They don't need to be in camera, they should not be.
No.
So that is where we sit, as you're well aware. So the vote of the regional district was to continue C3 conversations, be in camera when they need to be, and to not break any laws, and to get on with meeting. So that was how we're going to do it. So we will meet and talk out of the public eye, if that is what Common needs, but we can only discuss the things that are allowed to be discussed out of the public. It's up to us to uphold those laws, and we will do so.
Can I comment that, Chair?
Needs the pleasure of the council.
Thank you. So yeah, well, I just recall 3C government meetings. Common were always there. Regional district was always there. Powell River was always there. Whether the government, the province wants to change the laws to accommodate Cohaman or the region or the city, I don't see any reason. The C3 meetings should be open. We should discuss like we always did. And then if there's issues that Cohaman or the regional district thinks needs to be done in camera, then go in camera for those issues. But all the other things we used to discuss and talk about in partnerships, and we used to partner, we used to do things together. What meeting behind closed doors all the time because we have a strenuous relationship with one or the other, no good will come out of meeting behind closed doors. Anyways, thank you very much for your time. God bless you and take care.
Mind us, stick around for a sec. We have a couple of other.
Oh.
Here.
And that's the thing about councils, everybody likes to get their 2 bits in. I just have a couple of things to add. Motion was discussed at the regional events I would be. Our Thursday meeting about what's going on. Regional district did adopt a motion. District C3 meetings continue under the mechanics of Cohaman law. In fact, the decision that they might like to speak about some things in camera. That's the motion that was passed. It wasn't unanimous, but I'm in a situation where I'm part of the board, like I am part of this council. A democratic decision is made, I go with what. That's what was decided there. That debate, the CAO of the regional district said that the 3 CAOs, CAO of the city of Powell River, together in July, on those terms of appointed parties. Haven't seen that come to the end of the city yet. I don't know if there are any plans to do that, but that's the situation we're in. I agree with you. I did campaign on transparency. I think it's very important. Transparent and as open as possible. There are reasons in the community. Transparency is important and have as much open as we possibly can. If we're going to move forward as a society, not as a city, but as a society that includes people who live in the city, live in the regional district, and the Cohaman Nation who have lived here for 10,000 years, at least, if we're going to find a way to move forward, we can't do it as an insular group of leaders. We have to bring along the public with us to do that, in my opinion. See what this comes up on a future agenda of council. discussion again.
Good luck, Council.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to give my perspective. The word strained relationship was used. From my perspective, we do not have strained relationship. I meet regularly whenever Haggis John Hackett or myself have an issue. I think we have multiple things that are happening, but I don't see it as strained.
Thank you. Well, I've heard the councillor say such word and I used it, but good to hear. Good luck. God bless.
Thank you, Dave. I think I don't really have anything to add that hasn't already. Except for maybe one thought. And that is that we can work on work and we need to make decisions. And I'm really looking forward to this one being clarified, moving forward in a positive way. And I feel that for the most part that we have already. I might also just mention parenthetically here that I see this going on in the gallery and might remind us to speak clearly due to our PA system all still being under being worked on.
Yes, that's correct, Chair.
Okay. So if we'd all just speak clearly and then everyone can continue to hear us. On to 3.2, Jason Schurz regarding request to relocate Fall River Orphan Wildlife Society prowls located at 5772 Willow Avenue from Townsite Residential Area R3 due to illegal use of properties, zoned restrictions, and hazards. Mr. Schurz.
Folks, council. There's a PowerPoint listed somewhere. Get it off the sheet.
It's in the agenda package, Chair.
Yes. Mr. Schurz, we have an attachment
Perfect.
in our
Okay. So good. So I live at 5776
One
Willow.
sec, please.
Yes.
Is it possible for staff to put the presentation that we have? This council has a presentation.
Yeah. Right. Thanks, Greg. You're welcome. I live at 5776 Willow Avenue, and I live right next door to the Prowls operation, which is the Fall River Orphan Wildlife Society, which I'm sure some of the council is familiar with. And I have some neighbors here as well in support of my presentation, which details how Prowls is using their residential zone illegally by having a wildlife rehabilitation center on their property. I've spoken to staff about this in the past, and also Councillor Southcott about it a year or so ago. And I wanted to follow up on that and try to raise some interest for council to task some action plans to staff. There's also some bylaw infractions that I'm really concerned about, as well as health and safety hazards. So I'll go through this really quick and kind of give you a rehash of what's here. I'm not going to get too into opinions or anything like that. I just want to point out what's going on. So the overview is that I'd like to ask council to relocate the Prowls operation, which is at 5772 Willow, and it's in Townsite residential zone. I wanted to quickly detail the violations of the city bylaws that Prowls is doing, and also to share information about Prowls' failure to abide by the Wildlife Act BC. And also the last thing is to ensure that Prowls has consulted Indigenous communities about their activities with wildlife in the area. So on to the third slide there. So you want me to do it?
Yeah.
All right, I comes to power. Okay. The bylaw infractions. So just really quickly, I'm quoting from the bylaws, and hopefully they're not misquoted at all, but the main city bylaws in 3 different instances talks about how all residences have a right to peaceful enjoyment of their property. That's the main issue right now is the neighbors do not have peaceful enjoyment, and I'll explain why in a sec. The noise control bylaw states that no owner or occupier shall permit any animal by its calls, cries, barks, or other noises or sounds to disturb the quiet, peace, rest, enjoyment, comfort, and convenience of the neighborhood. Animal control bylaw, no owner or occupier of property shall feed or otherwise attract pigeons. Now, interestingly enough, that was actually put into place because of the property at Prowls. That was done about several years ago by the ex-people that lived in my house. So you can see the pattern here. Multiple structures on the property in breach of zoning bylaw for lot coverage. So there's probably 6 to 8 large structures in the backyard covering most of that area. Health hazards, rodents. I got my first rat trapped yesterday. It was great. Otherwise, we've been dealing with rats for a while. Bear and other wildlife attractants. Bears come through there all the time. Improper disposal of bird carcasses. That's the gruesome one. Moving on to the next slide.
I had a bear this morning. I live, I'm Jason's neighbor and his neighbor. Problem bear in the neighborhood and gets shot. There's another bear in the neighborhood.
Right, moving on. How do I change this? Okay. So just some information on Prowls' website. If you go on there and look at through, there's all kinds of references to wanting to have more space, how the current space isn't suitable, how they're overflowing with animals. I just want to point out a couple of quick points on there. So it does confirm that its facility, its town site, is not suitable for what it's doing, and not big enough for what it's doing, and also the health and safety hazards that it's showing on site. So the next one, that's right off their website. Interesting quote there. It can be quite amusing to walk into the house in midsummer to find 20 plus babies on the kitchen table, another 20 adults at ICU, and flight cages everywhere, filled with birds almost ready for release. The joke is that I have a bedroom in a wildlife hospital, share bath and kitchen. That's not far off, especially from April to September. That's merely Pryor, who's the occupier of the house and also the president of the society. A couple of notes here. They help with the limitations of our tiny space, looking for land to construct a proper facility, and that it's urgent. And also, they have 400 birds and more on the way from the lower coast. They mentioned how the Gibson's Wildlife Rescue is shutting down. Next slide. So just a note there, this is again from the website, in the About Us section, our facility. Down below it says, despite our current spatial challenges, Prowls boasts an organized ICU, flight cages, a dedicated freezer for diet items, and a laundry area that doubles as an additional kitchen area, multiple storage for cages, kennels, and medical supplies. So the Wildlife Act of BC. I talked to Jack Evans, who's a BC wildlife biologist at Wildlife BC 2 weeks ago now. Very interesting. He knew about Prowls right away. As soon as I mentioned it, he pulled up their file. First thing he told me is that they don't have a permit right now. It's expired and it's not been renewed. That expired in July. And then inspection had not taken place for several years. It's something that they put on their docket for a long time, but because of staffing, other issues, they can't get up here to look at it. It was inspected about a year after it was opened, but not since then. And even at that point, he said they had concerns with the inspection. There's a lot of talk about Prowls being negligent in the requirements to operate a wildlife rehab center under the Act. It has a history of infractions and questionable practices. No other wildlife rehab facility in BC is located in a residential zone. Full stop. There's not one other wildlife rehab center in BC that's in a residential zone. So we're very much on our own with that one. And then lastly, I mentioned before, has Prowls consulted local indigenous communities, and that's part of the Act as well. So I have some possible solutions, because I was told I should have some. First one is to approach community forest to get some funds to relocate Prowls. Some options for relocating them would be to the bird sanctuary in Cranberry, and there's been some talk about that in the past. Sounds like an amazing idea. relocating them to another property within the city or within the regional district. The second option, or the third option, would be to scale back the operations for now until another location can be found. So limiting the amount of species, maybe not bringing in baby bears and bobcats into your basement, maybe keeping the birds, maybe not using different animals such as the standard crows and pigeons and sparrows, and focusing on the raptors, scaling back, limiting the species, and cleaning the property is a huge thing too. Health and hazard safety, I talked about before, is mainly to do with the property and how it's what state it's in, as well as inside the house. And then the last solution would be to close it. I mean, until further notice, at least until we can get somewhere else for it. Those are my solutions, or my suggested solutions. My action plan proposed would be to have council give direction to the staff to move forward with this researching solutions for the new Prowls location. Second would be council and staff establishing a timeline to deal with Prowls in an urgent and timely manner. And then the last thing would be to advise us as neighbors how we can expedite the relocation of Prowls. What can we do to make sure this happens and stops affecting our peaceful enjoyment of our property? Last, it's my name, email address. There's lots of stories we can tell you. I won't get into it now. I have time. All kinds of stories that neighbors have around what's happening there, the treatment they've had, all kinds of wild and wacky stories. I just wanted to mention that the most important part of all this is that, my partner and I bought the house in 2015. We bought it because we wanted to be in town site, we wanted to be in a residential zone that's quiet, is a picturesque neighborhood, and we didn't realize we were buying a house right next door to a wildlife rehabilitation center. And it's been a problem ever since for us. And I would like to look at that basic fact about us neighbors living in this residential zone with this facility right next to us. I think that's it. Questions?
Thank you. Before we go to comments and questions, discussion with council here, I want to make the one observation that quite a bit of what you have conveyed to us here, I would be quite surprised if Prowls themselves didn't agree with and weren't already working on. You did mention that early this spring, we had a meeting. We had more than one meeting. Staff were involved. There was some work and intentions of carrying work forward. It is my impression that some of that work has been carried forward. And just one other small comment that I would make, and that is that there is a widespread appreciation for the work that Prowls does across this community as well. So this is a challenge and a problem that is ours, I think. So with that, I want to turn it over to, and Councillor Doe was involved in the meetings along with me and staff and you, Jason, and some others earlier this year. Councillor Doe.
First, have you talked to the Prowls organization about this? Have you met with them?
Yeah.
No, he hasn't.
On this?
Really?
Oh, I've talked to Mary Lee about it. It's different issues that I have with it. Yeah. I haven't met with the organization. Yeah.
I want to make sure that everybody who's watching this understands that Prowls is a separate organization. It's not a service provided by the city. Service provided by God. It's suggested that it's something that's supported by a lot of people, but it's not a city operation. See that Jason Gow from the planning department is here. I wondered if Mr. Gow would like to comment on that department. City has been to try to work through this issue.
Absolutely. Through the chair, Mr. Schurz and I have been in communication. Obviously, the timeline that Mr. Schurz would like to see this resolution, a resolution of this issue, is not in keeping with the timeline it takes to establish a business plan, put a plan in front of this council to then consider disposition of land to accommodate a facility like this. That is still in the works and not being led by planning staff, so that's where, as much as I appreciate being called up here to talk to you about this, it isn't actually with planning staff at this time. But that's your question.
That's as well as I think you could answer it. I just wanted to make sure that people knew that city staff were looking at the issue and trying to find a solution.
So if I can add to that, the director who was overseeing this has since taken a promotion back east. So, and that's only one of interruptions that we've had in business that senior staff would be looking after. So it also is it's a reason why there's been a delay here. Mayor?
Thank you. I'd like to thank you for coming here, having thought through proposed action plans. Always encouraging to have that at the end of a presentation where people, things could be improved. So thank you very much for that. And also, I think you may know that the city owns 150 properties. I'm hoping that in any follow-up activity that staff can look at those 150 properties. There may be one there that would work very well to relocate the, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shoes. So I'm kind of wondering if the idea around the bird sanctuary is an allowable use in that area, or if there's something that would prevent that. And I guess that's a question to my planning staff, just because, you know, I don't mind the idea. I guess it depends on whether there's restrictions on what we can be using things like a bird sanctuary for. Covenant, I believe, is that right?
So to be quite frank, the bird sanctuary was, yeah, and we would be coming back to you with something that was probably more appropriate for an operation because of the fact you guys have a government policy.
Buildings there, right? Okay, so I just wanted to answer that one.
If I could just throw one other idea, wouldn't necessarily eliminate the issue because you still amongst the residential neighborhood.
Right.
All those larger properties and still adjacent to residential property. Won't get into much about the property the city was looking at. We have a
comment about Councilor Elliott's comment. I just want us all to think about allowable use. That's a great term. Allowable use right next to two houses in town site, across from other houses in town site. That's what I want to focus on. Maybe having folks think about is the allowable use, those words, that concept.
Thank you, through Chair. This is most of the council in this present day isn't aware of that this was once on our table previously, many years ago now, with Mayor Formosa in charge, and we looked at and had staff look at property in this regard to build a site to house this. For whatever reason that fell off the table at that point in time. So here we are today, and we're dealing with the issue, and I'm very encouraged to hear that Mr. Gao says he's already looking into possible locations. So I guess staff is already engaged. Is that correct, Mr. Gao?
Sure, that is correct. City staff are engaged.
So it's in good hands, and we'll see what comes of it and be able to make some decisions down the road. Thank you very much.
So I'm not really sure that this is necessary, but in order to reboot this, if that is necessary, I'd like to suggest that by unanimous consent, we refer this to staff to pursue and perhaps advance on the priority list. Does that suit us? Seeing no objections, by unanimous consent, Councillor Doe.
Very good. We're doing that. The idea is that city staff will look into possible resolutions of the issue.
Well,
That include neighbors in the discussion or just Prowls?
I think we will let staff, I think we would let staff have their discretion and manage situation that is staff's responsibility. Yes,
Just worried about the pension staff being fairly clear with their priorities. Not sure we're trying to necessarily trump any other priorities with this motion. So that's kind of a tricky thing. I do want the city to work towards trying to find a new location for Prowls, and anything the city can do to facilitate that, and possibly even city-owned properties, depending on what that looks like. And I'd like to know that and move forward on that. So I just, maybe the motion by unanimous consent should be to ask for staff to look at those options for relocation. That's what matters so much.
Mr. Acting CAO, do you have a suggestion to make this clear and acceptable to staff?
Perhaps, this is the chair, direction to staff to work with Prowls and the neighbors as required for a possible new location of the society on city land or otherwise. Is that it?
Councilor Dove and Councilor Isaacson.
Not to make it too complicated. Delegation has come with a list of possible solutions. Some of them might be better than others. But I think it's pretty clear if we're going to ask staff to deal with this, to have access to this list of possible solutions. Those would be some of the ones they would think about. Makes sense to me.
Thank you. I think the motion maybe is just overly specific. I think that property is a part of it, but we're looking for resolution, and that encompasses more than just relocation, because relocation doesn't address the immediate issues and doesn't address immediate conversations that could happen, or maybe they're already happening. I would be in favor of a motion that, directs staff to pursue a resolution on this issue, including potential relocation onto city lands, but also, now I'm getting wordy myself here. Like, I think the intention is there's two layers here. One is an appropriate site for an organization that's valued by many people in this community, but also the immediate concerns related to appropriate use in the neighborhood.
So I didn't really want to take a dive into the weeds, but I will mention that there has been work ongoing for over a year. Not sure how many years, as Councilor Plum mentioned, this goes back quite a ways. I would expect that our direction to staff would include that work be revisited and updated, and I think there has been some work done. My understanding is there has been work done since our last meetings earlier this year, and that would be included, I'm sure, as well. So if we can keep it to the simple and forget priorities, etc., let staff judge and deal with the situation. Councilor Ellis.
I like our motion to focus on the relocation aspects, because council can't really interfere with enforcement actions coming through bylaws, and I think we need to not be trying to provide comment on that.
Gonna try again. I think we're getting really complicated. Simple motion to full motion. Have to look at solutions. Problem. Problems in the details, it starts getting more complicated. The city doesn't own problems. Not our organization. City can not make decision to lease source. We can do, in my view, people together, look at opportunities in front. Keep it general, Don't try to express a way that it should be detailed and found. We could get through it. Have something to come back to us with.
Second the motion.
Mr. Jackson, could you read what you had again, please? Report. This is truly your.
How about direction to staff to work with Prowls and neighbors to seek resolution with immediate concerns and work towards long-term relocation of the property. I had it until the end.
That's what exactly the motion.
Oh, okay.
Facility.
Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify one aspect because I think it's very important, the transparency. And would that mean a report would come back to committee of the whole for the public to be appraised of developments?
Through the chair, I could see immediate concerns just being discussed, and then there would be a follow-up report for looking at the long-term site location.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, council doesn't get involved in bylaw infraction negotiations, so we don't need to know those details, but if it is something related to city-owned property or something where you need higher level of direction, great, but I think we're all just seeking resolution for all parties here.
Thank you. Prior.
It's going out of order, Mr. Chair, but I'd like to respond to some of the allegations.
Can we ask you to defer that to the conversation that is going to ensue that we've just please, thank you very much. You could always email us.
I can send it in.
Oh, perfect.
That's good as well.
Along with the permits that Jason says I don't have.
Okay. Thank you. On to reports. 5.1 official community plan and zoning bylaw. Comprehensive update launch. Mr. Jackson.
Afternoon, Council. Probably not as exciting as the last allegation, but I'm here. I know we had a presentation by staff a couple of weeks ago giving you an update on the OCP. Well, today I'm actually here to look for direction to launch the project itself. So today I'm here presenting on behalf of my colleague who's unfortunately away sick, but we're looking for that direction to begin the engagement, 475 engagement, which is reaching out to our regional partners. So Klamath Nation, School District 47, Regional District, and the Regional Hospital Board, letting them know that we're beginning this process. And the other aspect there is in that's the report. There is a engagement plan for your consideration. It is a high-level engagement plan, and intentionally so. One of the reasons that is because we're hoping the city embarks on its corporate engagement strategy between now and kickoff of the official community plan, so that the official community plan engagement process itself can be informed by that corporate strategy. Again, it's high level. Maybe things in there that you see that you want to ask questions about, and I'm here to answer those questions. Yeah. But I just want to highlight that it's high level. Really, the minutiae, if you will be informed by that corporate strategy that we hope to have in place before the kickoff in early spring of next year. So in terms of the recommendations, I think that's really where we want to land today. The council, with respect to a comprehensive update of the City of Powell River Sustainable Official Community Plan bylaw, has considered appropriate consultation opportunities with persons, organizations, and authorities pursuant to 475 of the Local Government Act. Direct staff to provide opportunities for consultation with persons, organizations, or authorities who may be affected for the project engagement, and direct staff to mail notifications to that regional district nomination, School District 47, and Powell River Regional Hospital Board. That would be the official launch of the official community plan process. So exciting stuff.
Question? Councilor Elliott.
You, Chair. So when we're gathering technical data and we're focused on the information that's going to be considered in the plan, do we have any, does any of that look at wildlife migration or the use of city areas by wildlife?
Let's see. I would say not specifically, but I am see the list in here that talks about economic development. Those are previous plans. So demographics, land inventory, capacity analysis. So that's looking at, as an example, our industrial land base. Do we have enough? Do we need more? Civil engineering, understanding our infrastructure, wildfire, natural environment. And so that right now is the bulk of what we're looking at. But natural environment typically means we're looking at steep slopes, we're looking at shorelines. If council has a desire to see us look more extensively at the environment as it relates to wildlife, probably need additional funding to hire consultants to contact RCP highlights in policy, environmental sensitive areas, and it's the ecosystem data that shows up as part of the visual data. Not great data, not very helpful, and we would be likely required to go out and get consultants to do additional work to really fine tune that.
Through the chair, follow-up. Do we have an idea what that would cost if we wanted to pursue something like that? Maybe we could apply for a grant to include more information about wildlife if we knew what we were looking at.
Just to give you a sense, I don't have a number exactly on that type of work, and it's a broad, it's a big community, and so you're looking at a number of different areas. But the consultants that we're looking at now, the list, and so that's been budgeted. You will see when I show up here in November, I am looking for a small little nudge, additional funding. So maybe that's part of that conversation, and maybe staff at that point, or the maybe staff at that point can have a better sense as to the dollar value associated with study of that nature.
Yeah, I'm just really concerned about our future and increasing density done in a way that is respectful for the wildlife that currently uses the area, and making sure we don't forget about them as we're making those plans. Yeah.
No, I'm not supposed to ask questions, but perhaps I could just get a better sense as to what, are you thinking about specific areas of the community? Because I can think of, for example, the bench lands discussion, and that I think you Councilor Elliott, you mentioned wildlife in the past, and that is a large piece of land that is largely undeveloped, if not all undeveloped, with a couple of water courses that run through it. And I think that process, depending on where the proponent gets to, could be driven by an application that comes ahead of the official OCP process, at least the public engagement part. My point is that may be something we could ask of that particular property. If you were thinking more broadly, the reason I ask that is because there aren't the swaths of land like District Lot 450 that would have an impact on wildlife corridors like this one could. If that makes sense.
I guess my concern is that a developer comes to develop because they're zoned to do so, and we would like that to go seamlessly. We had a way to know in the future how the animals are currently using and where they're going and what they need to get through. And we protected it to some extent and zoned and made plans for that. We wouldn't have those conflicts on a case by case basis, and development would be smoother and easier for people for trying to do that without having undue hardship for the wildlife who don't have a voice here at this table or any table really. I know that my home is situated where the bears walk through. They were walking there before my home went there. and so, you know, we manage accordingly in our little strata. The bears come here and we see them and they're all coming through and they get distracted by our stuff. So we try to make sure our stuff is not distracting. And that's how it is. But had there been a way to know in the first place, maybe an easy pathway could have been planned into the whole thing, and they might have preferred to walk on the easy pathway that we left them. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. If we know where they're going, where they walk, if we plan just like we do for bikes or cars or anybody else, a path for them, we may have less problematic interactions between people and wildlife in the future. That's what I was thinking. I noticed in our plans, we don't really think about that. It's maybe something we should do.
Isaacson?
Thank you. So one thing that I've noticed so far on council and even before my time on council is people are more likely to show up and participate in something when they have something to react to. Sometimes talking hypothetically about futures is hard, but when you're like, well, we're thinking this, then people have an opinion on whatever that is. And so if you could talk a little bit more about this kind of this phase one, like raising awareness and sharing the importance of early engagement. I'm wondering what tactics, I know you're not getting into too much detail here, but how can we encourage a higher level of engagement early on rather than getting to the end, sharing something, having a bunch of people react to it and feeling like we need to backtrack or to review things?
Chair, maybe I'll share a recent conversation with our CEO and one that I'm really inspired by. Just that having come off the city plan with Nanaimo, the CEO has a number of different ideas that and exactly that, how do we get more buy-in? And so I don't think I want to offer up any of her ideas at this stage. I think that myself, Ferguson and Ms. Paul Singh would like to sit down and have those conversations together about what would be the best course of action. But she had some very strong opinions about the initial steps and what we might want to do as a community to exactly that. How do we get that engagement? I expect to see city staff planning in different organizations more of the go-to approach, and how do we do that? And just sit back and ask people to come. That's something that, one example, Singh said she had success with in the
I would suggest publishing the engagement plan as part of this report. 4 pages long, that's a lot for people to read. There is a lot of information in there about what's going to happen. And the trick is to get people to be aware of what we're talking about. We've had delegations come just recently to council saying, here's a wooded area that we don't want developed. We'd like it to be turned into parkland. We don't want housing there. There was a lot of interest in that delegation that came, and a lot of interest in discussion. So this is what this OCP is about determining where the development is going to be, what it's going to be like, and how the community is going to be in the future when growth happens. As much as we might like to, we're not going to be able to stop growth. People are going to keep coming because it's a great place. Growth is going to happen. So, hopefully this is a way to plan it, make it a better place to be. And towards what Councillor Elliott is saying, I think that every time we drive by a piece of property, used to be trees, used to be a chunk of forest, used to be the animal pathway. One of those is cleared off. You have less options about what to do. And if we don't have some kind of plan about wildlife corridors to get animals and bears and deer and raccoons and whatever else is wandering around through the travel part of our city, if we don't do that, we're going to lose all the ecological benefits and part of the greatness of where we are. Know that there is a wildlife pathway down my driveway. It's pretty regular. And I actually enjoy some of the things that walk down there when they eat my ducks. But, you know, I think, you know, having an understanding that we're going to do an OCP, looking at what it would be, do a reasonable study of wildlife corridors while we still have wildlife corridors is a really good idea. So I think it's valued by people in the community. I think it would be a worthwhile way to spend a few dollars, but we need to know from you how many dollars. I hope I haven't been too confusing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I echo Councillor Doud's sentiments about public engagement, staying the course on where you're at, Mr. Cow, in terms of your plan. We don't need to get into the weeds on wildlife at this point. I don't think we need to let you do your job. And if wildlife is an important issue to the residents of Powell River, we add that to discussion. Those open meetings, people can weigh in and give us their opinion, and we can deal with that in that regard. But I know where I live on the edge of the forest up on top of Lytton Street, that the wildlife seems to have free roam on our territories. And I don't think there's anything stopping them from going anywhere they want in this city, because I see them regularly on our streets. So I'm not too concerned about the wildlife. I'm more concerned about the life the residents will enjoy.
So the resolution in the report here is to go to council, but not see. Can we direct council, or can we direct staff? Okay, just before I ask somebody to read that, just want to mention my appreciation, and especially the promise that you suggest for greater interaction with the community. The last time an OCP was written here was 2014, and I remember my own personal frustration because of the lack of community participation, to the degree that I did write to the peak to express that frustration. So I am delighted. I think over those years, our community has become more involved in many issues that have come to this table particularly, but in the long-term vision of our community. And this is an unparalleled opportunity for anyone in our community to have their say when it comes to vision. And if we ever needed that, now is the time. So thank you. And I am really grateful that you are taking the opportunity to start engagement beforehand, according to section 475, I believe it is, that speaks to early and enduring engagement. So would somebody like to read this resolution? Councillor Almeida.
I recommend that staff be directed to prepare a comprehensive update to City of Powell River Sustainable Official Community Plan Bylaw 2370-2014. The council, with respect to a comprehensive update of City of Powell River Sustainable Official Community Plan Bylaw 2370-2014, has considered appropriate consultation opportunities with persons, organizations, and authorities pursuant to Section 475 of the Local Government Act. Direct staff to provide opportunities for consultation with persons, organizations, or authorities who may be affected per the project's engagement plan, and direct staff to mail notifications to Cathet Regional District, Tla'amin Nation, School District 47, and Powell River Regional Hospital Board.
Sir Isaacson. Question?
Thank you. So I guess my comment is, I'm in support of the motion, of course, is community plans or higher level plans that address competing interests at a broader level are more powerful and help us develop in a faster, more efficient way. So we have a number of things coming up. I'm really glad to see that the new that flood adaptation mapping is part of the information. We have the information. The plan might, talk about what we do about some of those flood areas in our plan. I wanted to hopefully have information to help us include wildlife in our plan. We want to probably identify areas where we want to have transit in higher density versus areas we would have less density. All of those things happen in an official community plan. And I'm also interested in the official community plan speaking to encouraging practices that help us with warmer temperatures in the future. I don't know if that needs a study or if that's added in as some other kind of conversation, but I'm also interested in making sure we're addressing things that are likely to impact us in the near to distant future. So that's I just wanted to speak to that, and I'm in favor. Thank you.
All in favor? Mr. Go. On to 5.2, community engagement reports.
Thank you, Chair. I just returned from holiday after our UBCM meeting. So outside of our UBCM meeting, nothing much to report since the last committee of the whole, but it was my first UBCM. Enjoyed the time there, the opportunity that we had to represent our community in front of several provincial ministers and their staff. And being the last of several conferences this week, it was also good to connect with not only new colleagues from around the province, but some familiar faces that I've had the chance to meet at other conferences as well. And beauty of local government, we get to learn from what other communities are doing, and in some cases replicate areas that are succeeding elsewhere too. So overall, a great week.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, UBCM was fantastic. My first time around. I learned ask and you shall receive in terms of meetings with staff and ministers, and apparently that's not true of all communities. So I think maybe we've got a bit of a reputation of generally having positive meetings with staff and ministers at UBCM. We're not yelling, we're offering solutions and asking for their support. And I just want to express gratitude to council. I think we really, in all of our meetings, really presented a united team, and we're really, if one person took the lead, we offered supporting comments and really, I think, demonstrated ourselves really well there. So I wanted to express gratitude to the rest of council. Beyond UBCM, I attended the mural unveiling in between Dairy Queen and one of the buildings on the town center property. I know the other councillors were there. Maybe I'll let you speak to it for those who spoke at it. Attended the CUTHAT community action team meeting where the focus is on harm reduction and the opioid crisis. And one piece of fantastic information hearing there is, for those of you who may not be aware, we've had drug checking in this community since April. We have, I'm going to mess up the name, but there's a fancy machine, I think it's a spectrometer, that people can bring in their drugs to be tested to find out, is this actually what I think it is, the drugs that I think to be taking. And since that, based on their stats, as far as I know, since drug testing started in April, we've had 0 opioid deaths in this community, which hasn't been true before. And so great kudos and hands raised to the folks who work in harm reduction in this community. We're in AGM season right now. Lots of community organizations having their AGMs. I think there's about 3 that I wanted to attend last Thursday night, and I popped by the LIFT AGM out at Salish Center, and it was a great keynote from a provincial organization that does research and advocacy and training work with nonprofits across the province, and Vantage Point, and she was presenting on research that they had done about nonprofit networks and impacts of COVID and what the state of the sector was, and so that was really great to hear. attended the open house for the foundry, the new foundry that will come to this community that was announced earlier this year. And great turnout. And it looks like the lead time for that is a few years, and it's very involved. Community engagement is a high priority. Involvement in youth and their caregivers and service providers is highly involved. And this will be a possibly, but not determined yet, possibly a site and but a series of services that are well coordinated to serve youth and their physical, their mental health needs, issues with substance use, counseling, all the things that currently sometimes youth fall through the cracks and turn into adults that have struggles. And if we can support youth when they're young and help them turn into adults that thrive, it's important for us to do that. So very excited to see that move forward. But Youth and Family Services is the lead organization on that here. And then the 3 Years Indigenous Film Festival is ongoing right now. And I attended 2 movies there and participated on a panel at one for the movie My Name is Woolastock. There's an effort to restore the name of St. John's River in New Brunswick. And so the panelists included the director of that film and one of the chiefs from one of the nations along the Woolastock River. And movies still tonight and tomorrow night. I think there's still 2 movies left. And they're free, and you don't need a ticket. You just show up. And the one tonight looks pretty good. That's Patricia. That's a Carthet Film Society.
Great. If we crank up our speed, we'll be able to go to the movies. We have another meeting following this one. But I just want to talk a little bit about the UBCM. I've been to several of them now. And definitely agree that City of Powell River, I think, does well. Go and have a ministers meeting, which are hard to get for all kinds of people. We get a good reception because we go in with a plan, with a target ask, what we're going to ask the minister. We have arguments set up as to why we should get it. We have a group of people supporting each other there. They seem fractious and we've been getting one side and another taking care. We get in front of a minister and we're asking for something for our community. I think we do really well in standing together as a team. I think impresses people and leads to positive results. Best one for me was the last meeting I attended. I didn't attend them all because of conflicts. Was the minister or the Solicitor General, Mr. Farnworth. Met with him to talk about alternative solutions to putting people in jail or releasing them onto the street without punishment at all. Talked about coordinating with Carthet Community Justice, mental health organizations, housing organizations, the RCMP, first responders in the community to try to get a consistent network going. The minister listened kind of intently. And at the end, he reviewed all of the things that had been in the submission and said, sounds like what we're looking for a system called situation table. If we have funding for that, we'll let you know and we'll get you involved. So that's the most positive answer I have heard from a minister's meeting. All the UBCMs I've gotten, I've heard lots of positive answers and lots of we'll get back to you. This is the first time I've been there where that we got funding for that. Sounds like you meet it. We'll get the application process going. That's the kind of thing that you can accomplish at a UBCM meeting with 15 minutes of meeting time and going ahead. Also, one of the best things for me about the UBCM was lunch and dinner. Because we could go into the big ballrooms to have lunch and dinner, and what I looked for was one table with an empty chair at it, and people I don't know. So I'd sit down, and within a couple of minutes, you would find, what do you know, they're all municipal politicians, and they all have different points of view on issues. And there is no better way to learn talking to people over lunch about what's going on in their community. talk about housing, talk about crime, talk about any issue you want, and you will learn things. Great. I came home. I rested for a day or two, and then it was what do you know? It was the beginning of the Kings hockey season, and I went out and bought a couple of seasons passes this year, so I wouldn't have to have tickets. And games on Friday and Saturday night. I went to both. Friday night was an amazing experience. The mayor was there, and he could tell you about it. And but also it was kids' night, I think, minor hockey night or kids' night. The place was full of kids, and they were having a great time, and the entertainment value was huge. The Kings made a mistake of not winning on Friday night, but come back on Saturday, and the Kings did win the game. My advice, what I learned there is don't go home 10 minutes before the game's over if you think it's not looking good. Because everything changed in the last 10 minutes. A great 3-on-3 overtime period, and shoot out all you can ask for in the hockey game. And the kids were there again in full force, actually all of them looking forward to the opportunity to dance and maybe be on the big screen. But it's great entertainment. I encourage everybody to come out and support the team. Just want to comment on one other thing. I've been talking to an awful lot of people about commitment that myself and other councillors made to form a committee of marina users. But that almost today. And I'm going to be bringing a notice of motion to a meeting very soon in council. Get underway with setting up that advisory.
Thank you, Councillor Dove. Maybe we'll. My favorite ministerial meeting was one where we had 15 minutes and 3 topics. We actually achieved that. I was pretty proud of us, especially myself. Because one of them was mine. However, the same ADM I talked to about this last year and the year before last was in that room. So it wasn't like I had to repeat myself very much. I was really looking forward to welcoming our new CAO to this meeting, by the way. I'm sorry that she's not here so that we can do that, but she certainly is here, and she's on the, I see.
You can see her little circle with LB
on our screen, and so and I know, Lisa, that you are with us as Gopal Singh. Yes. So looking forward to when perhaps the after effects of UBCM have left you entirely and you're here with us in person. Just one thing that I did that I have never done before at UBCM, and that is I attended what's called the resource breakfasts. Now, this is where the miners and the oil men and natural resources people turn up, and 3 mornings, there were 3 talks from 3 different ministers. Minister of Forest, Bruce Brown, Minister of Lands, Water, and Low Carbon Resources, Josie Osborne, and the Jedi minister, I think it was Jedi, no, not Jedi, Walrus minister. And they all have acronyms for their ministries now, Water, etc. I'm getting these names wrong, but that's Nathan Cullen. All 3 of them are skilled speakers, and it was fascinating to me to see how they included considerations of the vast changes that are going on with our natural environment, particularly involving floods, fires, etc., and how that is influencing the business of many people in that room. It was fascinating to have conversations and see the ferment of imagination and innovation and hard work being done by the resource sector in our province to not only just survive but thrive into the future. Yeah, and I also did attend the mural opening behind Dairy Queen and was honored to represent you, your worship, and have an opportunity to speak. And I just want to say that it is something to go and have a look at. These are large paintings that represent the history of our region, both the Indigenous and the non-Indigenous history. And this is a proud history that we share. We all have parts in this, and it is a beautiful artistic depiction of stories that are our stories. So I would highly recommend that as a little outing, and we'll have a look at that art. On to you, Councillor Paul.
Elliot, not next? Or is it me?
I thought we'd go back this way and end with the.
Sure, that sounds like a good plan.
That's for the last.
So through the chair, just a couple of items from UBCM that I want to touch on. And one is, first of all, the award that the City of Powell River received for their fine work that they have accomplished on the Sangha Bus initiative. It was great to see our ex-councillor, Councillor Leishman, who now works for the NDP government in an environmental capacity of some sort.
It's the Community Energy Association.
Community Energy, that's what
She doesn't work for.
Anyway, she was down there beaming from ear to ear when Powell River was awarded the award on the Sangha Bus initiative. And knowing how instrumental she was, along with our person in planning department, Anna Lukanova, in getting grant funding for that project, it was no doubt a no-brainer to ask her to come up on stage with us to receive that award. And we were able to give her a big hug when we were up on that stage. So it was nice to see her. And it was also nice for the city to be recognized. I hope that puts us in good stead when BC Transit comes to Powell River and talks about perhaps providing some additional funding to keep that Sangha Bus running. That is my hope. Secondly, in terms of the meetings, and one of the meetings that is close to my heart is BC Ferries. And I was a little disappointed in the response that we got from the ministry that day, even though we laid it out in great graphic detail about the disparity between the upper and the lower Sunshine Coast and the reservation system and how that works. It was a disappointing response in terms of the person we were dealing with, saying in terms of priority loading, we met with the lower Sunshine Coast a couple of days ago, and they weren't really all that enamored about dealing with residential passes in any way, shape, or form. That was the response. Very disappointing. I think it's very short-sighted on their part, but we will deal with them as we go forward. And on another note for BC Ferries, because of some of the disruptions that they've had in their open meetings in various communities, not Powell River, but elsewhere, they have canceled all of their open public engagement. So that is no longer happening, and it's all online. And that's very disappointing to hear that that has taken place. Doesn't help our cause in any way, shape, or form. On the local front, it was nice to attend our financial meeting at the complex last week. And it's sad to report that not very many of the members of the public showed up. It was mostly staff and council and mayor. So in terms of that engagement and where we are in the financial front in our community, it is very important that the next engagement, people come out and get engaged. We can't say that loud enough. And I won't belabor the point. And there was one other item I was going to mention that I went to recently. Oh, yes. Lastly, the town site ratepayers. Before I went to UBCM, I went to an evening meeting at my old place of business called Brooks Secondary School. And I was supposed to talk for 10 minutes. And I used as a template our current strategic plan that was open in the public forum, and highlighted a few of the items on that list, and talked about those only from my personal perspective. But instead of 10 minutes, I think I spoke for about 40 or 50. And from what I gather, it was well received. They appreciated the openness and communication coming forward, and we need to do more of that in this community. There is no doubt in my mind that communication needs to be upgraded. Thank you, Chair.
Chair. Thank you, Councillor Palm, for mentioning the word that our community won for the Zunga bus. That was definitely a highlight at UBCM. I think the community is in good hands. Our team was truly a team at UBCM. I thought we performed exceedingly well. We had a number of ministerial meetings. We got every meeting we asked for and every staff meeting we asked for. We had a lot of meetings. I had lunch with the mayor of Hazelton before I left UBCM, and I was shocked to find out that they had received none of the meetings they'd asked for, neither staff nor ministerial. And I had no idea that that could happen to you. So whatever it is we're doing to represent Powell River at these meetings, the ministers want to meet with us, and they're saying yes to our requests, and that makes us an effective team. I think our team served well this year. I was proud to be on that team. Thank the mayor and my entire team for doing so well at UBCM this year. I attended while I was there the Resilient Communities session, the town hall on housing. I attended the resolutions as much as I could, got engaged, stood up, represented views from our community, voted. I was approached at one point in time when I was waiting for the Port Authority tour around the port. I went on a boat and I got to personal tour guide because the person from C-SPAN was standing next to me and really, really familiar with the Port of Vancouver. He pointed out their overcrowded facilities. I couldn't quite convince him that Powell River was probably where they should expand. He said he'd gotten the same ask from another coastal community that was quite a bit closer. And he said what they were going to do was see what else they could get that was kind of within the harbor first. And I thought that shouldn't overlook looking at available, less expensive areas farther up the coast. But anyway, I was approached by one of the executive of the UBCM and asked to run for UBCM board next year. And I was really honored that they thought that they should come and encourage that from me. So I wanted to share that with your community, that UBCM people would like us to participate there as well. I don't know if I will or I won't, but I was very honored to be asked to do so. I met with a number of the ministers at the social functions as well. We had a lot of receptions. I think my talk was 4 receptions in one evening. I managed to circulate around. I did a lot of the resource ones, wanting to connect with the people who were, I went to the reception for forest industry peeps. I went to the reception for the independent businesses. I went and had a meeting with them. They did their pitch. I learned about, I don't have the note with me, but there's a day in a small business day in January or February where we can promote our small businesses and learn more about them that I want to participate in. So I want to get more to staff and see if we can't do something in our community on that week. That I learned from the independent businesses meeting that I had. I thought it was a great idea. Sorry, I didn't bring that pamphlet with me, so I can't give you more details, but more to come. Since UBCM and all the wonderful stuff we did there, I've also attended the community action team meeting, and I want to bring up just a few points that my colleague Councillor Isaacson might have missed. We had 51 people attend our community action team meeting that day. The cross-section of our community engaged in working on the opioid crisis in our community is unprecedented. I've also attended this summer the Local Leaders United, which is local leaders invited to a forum to talk about their harm reduction in their communities. I got to talk to community action team leaders in every other community that happened to be coming to that event. Ours was hands down the best community action team out there. We had guest speakers come to our community action team in the summer. That was a doctor who runs the IOD clinic in downtown Vancouver. He came to our community action team to learn because he said our community action team is functioning in a way that the province, that everybody else admires. So 51 people are at our meeting from every agency involved in that crisis at our last community action team. So we had some positive results and some negative results to share during that meeting. One of the positive things is we've had no fatalities in our Quebec region since the spectrometer became available to do drug testing in our area. We're not the only community with a spectrometer, but the success, I think, is attributable to how well we coordinate and the number of people involved in our community action team getting access to the spectrometer for the people who need it. That's the first time we can say that we've had no fatalities over the summer since the crisis started here in our community. So, you know, well done, that Colorado. It's amazing. I attended the International Day for Truth and Reconciliation March. It was, I couldn't count all the people, but it looked to be 1,000 people marching on that day down to Wellington Beach from the T-Spot site with their orange shirts and participating. So that was really impressive. I really enjoyed watching my community come out and support, you know, the Truth and Reconciliation. It was beautiful to watch. And I was proud to be part of that, and proud to be a member of a community that shows up so well. So that was good. I also attended the LIFT AGM. I was invited to do so. It's a wonderful evening. We got to see updates from them, their plans in the future. Met with the president of the Westview Ratepayers Society. He reports some positive movement in his relationships. He says there's an agreement they have around, what did he call it? He called it collaboration agreement between themselves and the LIFT. And they have a meeting coming up that BC Housing is going to attend on October 27th, and he has high hopes that they'll move forward in what he calls a community lens to evaluate things. Pretty excited about this idea of a community lens. I want to know more about that. So on that in the future. I attended some of the budget meeting along with my colleagues. I hope to see more of our community members come out to budget meetings in the future because, you know, the city showed up. We had CFOs and planners and everybody that they needed in order to understand everything about the budget was there. That kind of access, I would like to see utilized more by the community. I also attended a group that I've been appointed to by the Quebec Regional District called the Vancouver Island Coastal Communities Climate Action Steering Committee. And we're planning at the next AVICC to have a forum to assist with setting up more structure for networking between communities so that we can share the good climate action projects happening throughout our region and hopefully collaborate to use each other's work to get more benefit from each other's good work on that regard. So networking between staff, networking between regions, and reporting out, of course. There has think been more activities going on that I've been a part of, but those were the things I wanted to highlight.
If I just may make one comment. I think Councillor Elliott's on the right track. I think she's already started her campaign because I saw her face on the big screen in the auditorium at UBCM more than anyone other councillor. So she has a very good shot and I was both for it.
I was participating.
Councillor Fong.
You Chair. UBCM. My summary is demonstrated the ability of our council to work together as a team. And I met a lot of ministers, a lot of deputy ministers, and you could tell by the reaction when we were talking with them that they were so happy to have a cohesive group coming together with positive suggestions. I thought that was excellent. I attended a lot of the similar meetings that have been mentioned. I'm just going to mention the truck loggers because we had the forestry minister out for dinner and had a chance to dialogue with him. And what I was saying to him that resonated really well was we understand the provincial government will bring in different regulations, different requirements, but in order to keep business going, you need certainty. And if you have 5 or 6 different changes happening, it has a very negative impact. And so I think there was a general consensus that they would have to look at whether or not there's a lack of certainty because of the number of initiatives that are happening. So I'm hopeful that they'll use that as an example where they will put some things on hold to allow the industry to adapt. After the UBCM, I took the opportunity to visit the new fire hall, Victoria, and I was very impressed. What they did was they combined fire hall, emergency services, and on the 3rd floor, they have commercial operation, and above that, they have residential housing. So the chief was excellent. He provided one of his people to tour us, got the names of all the developers that were involved in that. And takeaway is, if you can be creative like that, then the impact of cost is significantly reduced. I'll just give you an example. So initial reaction when I talked to somebody about a fire hall residential development is, what about the noise? Well, they used modern technology, and whenever the fire trucks are leaving, there's a signal sent to the street. Red lights go off, all the traffic is blocked for a 3-block period, so the trucks can come out quietly, but they know they've got 3 blocks of uninterrupted traffic, and then after they make the left-hand turn, they can turn the sirens on again. But it's really creative. They also found ways to change the doors. So rather than having the doors go up this way, they simply quietly open this way, which is faster. And again, nobody knows what's going on upstairs. So I hope that our new fire chief, who is well respected in Victoria, will have a chance to follow up as well as other staff. Back at home, I mentioned the Powell River Kings, and very pleased I had an invitation to drop the puck Friday night. And there was Glenn Anderson. Anybody who's followed hockey over the years knows that Glenn Anderson was called Mr. Clutch because of his ability to score a goal when it was important. And we got a little bit of a laugh because I was living in Edmonton in 1980. And Glenn Anderson arrived for his first game, and I actually saw him play in his first game there. Bottom line is, there was maybe 150 people that waited patiently between the second and third period in order to get them then to sign their T-shirts, their hockey pucks. And there were 3-year-olds and probably 9-year-olds waiting to get their autograph. The other important thing is that I think that Glenn and his partner really like Powell River. So there's an opportunity that they will continue to have an involvement in the Kings. And when you looked at the number of young girls and boys that are playing hockey in this city now, having somebody with that reputation involved one way or other, just, it makes it so much easier to fundraise, get people out to games and do that. So very optimistic about that. Last Saturday, we had the Seniors International Day, so I was asked to give the opening address at the Senior Center here. And again, very encouraging to see the number of events that we have for seniors that wish to get out of isolation, and they can play cards, they can throw darts, they can knit. Exercise room there, so that's a great resource for the city. Also was asked to attend the Rotary meeting and answer questions about what the city is doing about this and that. So I think there's a lot of good volunteers. I think we all know that Rotary volunteers have contributed significantly to Powell River. But I think there's the opportunity to engage Rotary further as we move forward with some of our initiatives. Did attend the financial open house. I have a little slightly different perspective. Rather than being disappointed at the limited turnout, I was really impressed by the constructive thinking that the 4 individuals who showed up had gone through. And I noticed afterwards they followed up with Mallory and gave Mallory significant thoughts and ideas about what could be incorporated. So I saw that as being very positive. And finally, finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I forgot to mention an event that's coming up that was, I learned about at the CAT meeting. It's called the Fentanyl Forum. It's a public facing event. It's intended to answer people's questions about what harm reduction is, how does it work, what is the whole fentanyl crisis about, you know, facts, information, things that might support evidence-based decision-making as we move forward. And it's on October 23rd at the Evergreen Theatre. And it was funded by a grant from UVic, and that team made the application. And so that's one of the ways they're trying to get out and talk to people in the community a lot more. So that's when that's happening.
Sorry, one thing that I forgot as well, I see Mr. Gisborne in the room. I attended the fall fair. Mr. Gisborne's one of the organizers. And can't say it was easy because I basically 2 days after getting home from UBCM, but the weather worked out and Sunday in particular was packed. So congratulations, and everyone that I spoke to about the fall fair just was really thrilled about it. Got to see so many, I saw a lot of people stopping me for a chat, and then I went home and snapped for a couple more hours. So I can't even imagine your experience going to UBCM and then taking care of Fall Fair. So that was great. Thanks.
I was asleep in 3 years of thought.
Thanks.
I was going to ask Chair Selka, you actually opened up a meetup. I want to say thank you. I also wanted to say a big thank you to the city of Powell River for providing the Outlaws
out to the grounds and come back. Thank you, Mr. Oh, that's Mark here. Number 9, who would like to read the decision? 8? Oh, questions, yes, we have questions. Any questions other than the comment? Thank you very much from the gallery. I was gonna ask the question, why did we mention the whole? So. Didn't make a very good list. Mr. Galinsky.
Thank you, Chair. No questions this afternoon.
Anybody online?
No callers, Chair.
Email questions? To 9, motion to go into closed meeting. Would like-
Thank you, Chair. I move that following adjournment of this regular meeting, council move into a closed meeting to discuss matters covered by the community charter under section 91E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements, if the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality, and the consideration of whether a council meeting should be closed under a provision of this subsection or subsection 2, and section 92B, the consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations between the municipality and a provincial government or the federal government, or both, or between a provincial government or the federal government, or both, and a third party.
So made a session. Favor. Thank you. 10. Before we do that.
In the morning, Mark.
Still no calls from anybody or emails? Good. Okay. Motion to adjourn. Almeida or Councillor Isaacson, second by Councillor Almeida. Favor. Unanimous. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Another box of Thai food?
Yeah. You know me so well.